So, Anupam, I want to start off the first question. Why we all here? We are all here because we want to make more monies. We want to build larger companies. We want investments for people like you. But last time we spoke, you had a very interesting perspective about money. And I would love to hear that perspective. And then I'll follow up questions thereafter.
Yeah, look, firstly, hi everyone. This hall is a little intimidating and it looks empty, although there is quite a few people. Large, big ceilings, I feel like I'm in an auditorium. But yeah, so great to see you all. But yeah, in 3 words, man, I love money, right? And I think most people do. Although most people don't readily admit to it, particularly given the conditioning that we go through in our country, where money is seen as a bad thing. Hopefully that's changing. But I think what I told you when you spoke to me about money in reference, I think this is in reference to our discussion about your book that you're writing and that you wrote. And this is a great plug for your book. What's it called again? Happiness? Or?
Happiness is a muscle.
Is a muscle. Happiness is a muscle. So there you see, I'm marketing for you already. But I think what I told you is I quoted Forrest Gump. If you've seen that movie, it's one of my favorite movies and some real great pearls of wisdom. And he said that money to me is, when you have it, it's one less thing to worry about, right? And I couldn't think of a simpler way to think about money. And I'll tell you what I took away from that and from my own experiences. I think money is very liberating. And what it can do for you if you use it correctly is pretty transformative. Of course, it can take you down the wrong path as well. But let's talk about what it can actually do for you. I think if you think about the most valuable resource that you have in your life, what is it? Anybody? What do you have that's the most? The brain and the body. Yeah.
Time.
Yeah, time. You know that, right? Time. Time is the most precious asset that you have because during that time your brain and body are deteriorating during the limited time that you have. And money can actually help you manufacture time, right? And that's why I think of it as very liberating. So let me give you some examples, right? Most of you probably live in Mumbai. So if you have enough money, for example, you can hire a driver. So now and if you hire a good driver, and I'm not talking about my driver because he actually makes me lose time rather than create time. So not that guy. But if you hire the right driver, you can do a lot of stuff while you're in the back seat of the car that you would otherwise be doing, driving your car, finding parking, and dealing with all the friction that one has to, right? Similar thing with staff at home, right? Somebody who can cook you lunch or clean for you, otherwise you'd have to do that. Take it a notch higher, and what if you had somebody who could plan all your meals, run your home for you, run your fitness for you, your diet, your everything, right? Like a home manager or life manager. Suddenly, it's a lot less that you have to do in terms of doing all the research and so on. Take it up another notch. What if you had a private plane? Now, if you are a frequent traveler, you don't have to spend all that time at the airport waiting for planes, going through that rigmarole, right? So it can actually help you manufacture time. You can keep extrapolating these examples. So without sounding too tired, the point I'm making is my brain stops optimizing. When you have a lot of money, your brain stops optimizing to save every penny, right? You know that this is not worth my time, right? And so a lot of things become things that you don't think about anymore. I'd rather spend that money, even if it's 30, 40, 50% more, than to spend my time on it, right? So it's one less thing I have to worry about in the grander scheme of things, and helps me manufacture time. So I think that's what
But
I think
Anupam,
about.
actually that also became an inspiration for me to start my new company. Because earlier, the first company you try to create is the only purpose is money.
Right.
And now what happens is that learning, or I think that safety net it gives you, right? It gives you the permission to fail at everything else you do because it's one less thing to worry about. And I think that was probably one of the inspirations that I got when I heard the sentence. The other thing I wanted to ask you was, right,
And yet you never gave me shares in your company, and you never even let me invest.
okay, that brings me to a question. So let's take on that itself, right? So the backstory is, right, uh, we were on this show which we would like to forget called The Vault. And there was an investment we were going to both make, or me, Amira, and Anupam. And then some principal things, it was a small amount, but Anupam said that this is against my investment principles, so I will not invest. And that company did become 20x of what we were investing at that point in time. Similarly, Anupam had invested in my company, and because I had multiple shareholders, I couldn't make some changes, and we decided not to sort of make that investment. So I want to ask you is that I think your principles have really stood the test of time, right? Because you've created a lot of wealth for yourself from those angel investments. But over a period of time, do you make exceptions? And has your some principles that you used to invest in 10 years ago, have they changed? Even like, let's say IRR, right? That now if money is one less thing to worry about, all your investments are with a primary motive IRR, or do you make some investments which are slightly different?
Hey, that part of the question is simple. Primary motive still remains money. When I make investments, at least, right? So I'm not going to lie to you. IRR, because yeah, money is also a great equalizer, right? Uh, when somebody is saying, I'm doing this for purpose, I'm doing this for making the planet greener or whatever, I don't know how to measure the guy, right? Suddenly there's honesty is lost. He can paint any dashboard and I don't know what to make of it. So, but if you say you're creating value in financial terms, then I know how to measure it, right? So it's a great equalizer. And so I still use money as the yardstick. But coming to principles, I think it's a great question. And how they've changed is that I finally have some. I think when I started angel investing, there were no principles, right? You were opportunistic. I come from a bania background, and जिधर दिखा कि 2 पैसे बन सकते हैं, धंधा बन सकता है, and you can make outsized returns. डाल दिए पैसे, right? इससे ज़्यादा सोच विचार नहीं था. You just want to make money, right? And then over time, I think what happened is you start doing a lot of deals out of FOMO. कि सब कर रहे हैं, hot deal लग रही है, we should also do it, right? Oh shit, we missed that deal. And after making a lot of mistakes, you realize over time that look, there are a few things that work and a few things that don't work. What really works is staying true to your principles over a long period of time. So, for example, I know what doesn't work, right? Integrity and lack of transparency, or lack of integrity and lack of transparency. If there is even an iota, and both are not necessarily the same thing, right? Sometimes you can have integrity and still lesser transparency just for other reasons. But either of those, right, I run a mile. Because for me, trying to read between the lines of figuring out later on that the person was out to cheat me really makes me feel like an idiot. And I don't like to feel like an idiot. So I'd rather lose money than be made to feel like an idiot. So, you spoke about Infido. In your case, they're both very different. Right? I'll just use those examples. I think in Infido's case, it was a case of transparency, right? He had some advisor who had 5-7% equity, which he never told us about, that it was an advisory setup. And we later discovered that, right? Which to me was very discomforting, right? And so I learned that, I'd rather sleep well at night and not feel like a fool in my own eyes than to make 20x my money. I think in your case, it's a very different case, right? I mean, integrity checks off. You've already created value. It's Vivek, Bhargava. You're a sure shot, 50x. But if I can say so, for some reason they had a clause which capped off my return at whatever X. And that might be also okay for the occasional angel investor, but for me who does it regularly, I can't set a precedent like that. Because if I do it once, and you have to assume that people know everything about everything, right? Or at least I know that I did it. So next time somebody, again, does the same thing, I really don't have any reason to say no to them either. So in your case, I think it was just about setting the wrong precedent, and I couldn't do that in the right conscience.
And I fully agree with you, right? If you had that kind of a clause in, let's say, Ola, then the wealth creation possibilities would have been very, very different for you, right? So fully understand. But I think one other thing I love about you, Anupam, is that you have very clear mental models on the way you take decisions, the lens that you use for it. And we were having this conversation, and that one single thought that you have, a mental model of how you take decisions, was actually life-changing for me. So I would like you to share it, what that is. But then I would like to also share with you what happened to me after that, and some decision that I taken. When I applied that mental model, it changed my way of looking at the decision.
So, firstly, I have mental models not because I'm super smart or because I have clarity. I have certain mental models because I'm super confused. So, it's the truth. So the reason I need those models is otherwise I get so overwhelmed. I've struggled with certain mental issues, conditions, let's call them as well. So I get so overwhelmed that I freeze. So I need these mental models, right? And these are not developed by me, but put together from various sources. But one mental model that's helped me a lot is to do with decision making. Let me ask you, how many of you are fully aware of how you make decisions? Okay, how many of you think you make decisions logically? Interesting. And how many of you think you make decisions emotionally? Okay, so there's some level of awareness. How many of you studied decision making? Okay, wow. There's a few hands that went up. So, what I figured out is that typically decision making comes from 4 areas. We think of it very simply, logically and emotionally, rationally and emotionally, right? And men say women always make emotional decisions, and women say, men, you're too logical and there's no emotion in you, right? Basically, from Mars and Venus. That's generally been the perception. I'm not stereotyping, I'm just saying that's what people perceive it to be. But there are 2 other areas where decision making comes from. One is ego, which is, you can say, a form of emotion, but I think it's a little deeper than that. And the other is conditioning, right? So for example, and this is a good example to give in our country, and given one of the businesses I run, when you feel that real pressure to get married, but financially and emotionally you're not ready, but you still feel nahi karna hi hai, that's conditioning. Because as soon as you're born, हमारे देश में 150 करोड़ लोग लग जाते हैं आपकी शादी कराने में, right? They just every day think and talk about your wedding, at least in your family, right? So you're so conditioned, you can't think beyond it after a certain age, right? But it could be a very bad decision for you. We take another example, emotional decision. And I used to struggle with this, right? I want to spend a day in the house with my daughter because she has a day off from school. But I used to struggle, but how do I say, sab log kaam pe aa rahe hain, how can I not go to work? But as soon as I realized that this is an emotional decision, I became comfortable with the fact that I'm willing to take that emotional decision because I love my daughter. And suddenly that clarity emerges that, okay, wow, that's fine. In work, right, you might have a decision that you need to, and the best idea should win at work, for example, but you might have a problem with somebody having gone to IIT and you never went to IIT, and you're suddenly, destroying their ideas, but you're just doing it out of ego. But ideally at work, you want to make rational decisions. So I think as soon as you start to understand conditioning, ego, emotion, rationality, and the awareness develops as to where that is coming from, you can make better decisions. I'm not saying that you always have to make decisions rationally. You can make decisions anyway, but being aware how you're making them will help you make better decisions. So I just think that framework kind of works for me. You said it worked for you, so I'd love to
So I'll
hear
share with
about
you
it.
an example of how it worked for me. So I co-own a team of table tennis. It's like IPL of table tennis called UTT. And when I had been sold the concept of owning the team, I was told that you'll get sponsors and it'll make money, the valuation will go up, and it seemed like a very rational, logical thing to do. Seasons passed and we didn't make money. Like nobody watches table tennis as much as I thought they would. So what happened was that when I heard that from you, what I realized was that actually the lens I had used was ego and vanity. I wanted to say the world number 8 plays in my team. I want to sit in the box of the owner and be on TV. I wanted to practice all these world-class players, right? So it was never a rational, logical choice. And as soon as I accepted that as a decision that I did for my own ego, luckily from the money that I have made myself, then what happened was I started enjoying the last 2 seasons so much because now it was clear, right? This is my vanity decision. I've spent these monies for my vanity. And last year we won the championship. So we recovered
Oh,
some
wow,
monies
congrats.
back.
I thought you might have made that decision out of emotion, because Vivek, by the way, is a champion TT player himself, right?
But
If I'm not,
yeah, so in the Buddha category of 39 plus, I've won some silver medals in the nationals. But as you said, right, the reason I said ego and vanity was because it is deeper than emotions, right? It's because, so if you say emotion, there are a lot of things that you don't spend up so much money on emotion. But for ego, you can go beyond sometimes your capacity. Right. I think one of the things I would love to know is on entrepreneurship and the winner's mindset. When you're making investments, uh, how are you able to identify people who really are going to commit to becoming successful and developing their winner's mindset? And does that play a role when you invest in companies?
yeah, look. So yeah, I think there's a couple of questions in there, and when I look at so the stage that we come in at when I invest typically is very early stage, right? So many of our companies that we invest in pivot. So the businesses that we end up with may not actually be the businesses that we invest in. So we have to over-index on the team. But what does that mean? Everybody will tell you we look for great teams. Of course, yeah. Who wants to invest in a bad team? Have you ever heard anybody say, I'm looking for a bad team? Can you please show me a bad team? So everybody looks for great teams, but what does that mean? And so we try to break it down. I think there are 3-4 attributes that we think really lead to success. And, it may or may not happen, but we find these common traits. So one is learning agility, right? And what that means is the best founders and the best teams, when you interact with them, and invariably when you're brainstorming, things come up that they have not thought of. Obviously, no person can think of everything. And ideas pop up. And within a week, you will see them come back with more questions or some working prototype or a demo of that, right? So their cadence to learn and iterate is so rapid, right? So that's a sure sign that, okay, at least you've got somebody who's willing to learn and adapt very quickly, right? And we see that common trait in companies that are able to really deliver. The other one that these days, and it was very different early on, if you had asked me this question 10 years back, it might have been different. But today, I put a lot of premium on business acumen or commercial acumen. तो क्या होता है ना कि सबको ये लगता है कि स्पेशली आई थिंक बैंगलोर में ये ज़्यादा प्रॉब्लम है Mumbai already has a lot of commercial acumen. कि if the guy can make a snazzy looking product ना, तो फोड़ देगा, मतलब सही बना देगा. But it's not true, यार. The best product doesn't always win. Right? In fact, the best product can lose because most often loses because somebody else with more commercial acumen is able to out execute you. तो जो धंधा होता है, जो some of us banyas take for granted, जो नस नस में वो बात होती है ना कि पैसे कैसे बचाना, how to maximize return. That, do you have that, or is there somebody in the team who drives that or has that? Because without that, you'll be great at raising capital and great at raising more capital and maybe good at building very nice looking products, but you won't build a great business, right? So I think these are a couple of attributes that I try to index for. And the third thing, although it's very important actually, the third thing, although companies pivot, is large markets, potentially large markets. Why? Because potentially large markets are very forgiving. Chote market mein you have to be almost perfect in everything that you do. Right? And as a startup, that's impossible. But in a potentially large market, you can make a lot of mistakes and still end up doing really, really well. So I think these are broadly the 3-4 things that I look for.
Yeah, it's so important because, like when I was building consumer.ai, our first thing was that we should become profitable. We should have 95% gross margin. And the fact of the matter is that, like I come from a business family which is into trading. So zindagi mein kabhi nuksan to kiya hi nahi hai, right? So the fact of the matter is every month when we were investing in the product making a loss, somewhere or the other I felt कि मैं अपनी family के नाम पे दब्बा हूँ. Till the time I make a profit, I'll not be basically saying that I'm coming from a business family. So
नहीं, and वो बात जो है ना जो नस में होती है ना, that you cannot teach. It takes a lot of time to develop. So one guy in there should be that fellow.
Okay, so I think one of the challenges I think the world is facing right now is in the last 5 years, I think there's more tech and technology development has happened than probably the last 100 years. In the next 5 years, the world of AI, quantum computing, and all these things are going to disrupt multiple industries, and they're not directly related, right? So drones could disrupt ports, and driverless cars could disrupt real estate. So how do you think AI and all these exponential technologies are going to impact either your existing investments or the new investments you're making? And how do you think about that these are industries that you should not be investing in because they could get disrupted, or these are the companies that will get a tailwind because of AI and all these technology developments, so I should be investing in them?
That's like a multi-trillion-dollar question. If somebody has a good answer for that, I'd love to hear, because then I know where to put my money. भारी सवाल है यार, लेकिन I'm not an expert in AI and technology, to be honest with you. But what I can try and do is draw parallels and try to give you some meta thoughts, right?
Actually, Anupam, I can just add to this only.
Yeah.
The Jeff Bezos was asked, right, what is going to change in the next 10 years? And he had answered that what is not going to change in the next 10 years. So you can add that thought into it also. How on a macro basis not going to change, right? Regardless of all these developments, what is not going to change along with it?
Yeah, sure. So I think technology is going to permeate every business. That is crystal clear, 0% doubt, already has, and now AI will permeate every business, right? We know that. Doesn't mean every business will be an AI business, but every business will have to become AI enabled at some point, just like business became digitally enabled, right? Or is in the process of becoming digitally enabled. So, I'll start with what will not change. So what will not change is the fact that you'll still eat food, you'll still wear clothes, hopefully, and you'll still live in homes, you'll still use some form of transport unless teleporting happens. So I think, a lot of times when we see new technology, we start to assume, oh, everything is going to become AI, and everybody starts putting .ai. I mean, there's a real estate company, I saw their ad recently, and they had called themselves one of the India's fastest, I'm not going to name it, but one of India's fastest growing consumer tech companies, right? By the way, their name starts with L and ends with A. You can figure out the rest. So I was like, what? So I think, we all assume, and a lot of people take advantage of that, is everything is going to become AI, right? But that's not true, right? We are still made of carbon. We still need to do all the things that we do. So businesses will become AI enabled, but what will not change is all of the things that I mentioned. And there will still be premium on great brands, great propositions, brands that appeal to your heart and not your head, like Apple does. Yeah, with every generation, it's becoming inferior and inferior to Android in terms of capabilities. But people just love the brand so much, they think it's superior. Everything that Apple does, they do it 5 years later, but they announce it as the first time in the world, and everybody believes them. It's like when you're madly in love with somebody, you believe all the shit that they tell you, but when you reflect back 10 years later, you realize that most of it was crap. Right? So I think that'll stay true. Great brands will continue to be built, right? But every business will become AI enabled. I think one of the things that we should worry about, and the change that I see happening, and this is a lesson that I draw from past technological cycles. So every time a new technological cycle comes, you know what people say? This will democratize the world, right? Which means this will create a level playing field for all entrepreneurs. So everybody can now be an entrepreneur. And to some degree, it might be true. And this will democratize the world. It's not going to be the same old power equation that few companies control the industry. But with every cycle, power gets more concentrated and consolidated. So today, if you think about the US, the Magnificent Seven, as the top 7 tech companies are called, boast of a market cap that's, I don't know, but possibly 50% of the entire stock market, right? I mean, there are more than $10 trillion between them or close by. So at least 25% of their market cap. Never has that happened, I think, historically. They control 80% of the digital advertising industry, right? They control some obnoxious amount of e-commerce. So with every cycle, as technology becomes more complex and it becomes harder for entrepreneurs to get into those industries, these things become more consolidated. So I think that's the danger with AI. Everybody who thought that Web 3.0 is finally going to, democratize the world was in for a rude shock, right? The only thing that came out of Web 3.0 so far is Bitcoin, which is, I think, worth whatever, a few $1 trillion now. And so all the value is consolidated there. If you look at AI, it's again going to be 90% of the value will be controlled by a handful of companies. So, all these SaaS companies, let me just use one example, that are today selling workflow automation tools, that's what they really are, right? And they're called tech companies because it's complex to put so many rules into a software. But what need is there going to be of any of these companies in the next 8 to 10 years if you have AI, which is self-learning, which can ingest massive amounts of data and can automatically create workflows for you by you just talking to it. You don't even need to know how to code. You just say, build me an HRIS system, right? So, and you're not going to have too many systems that can do that as well as a couple of them. So all that power, I think, will get more and more concentrated. It's going to change. Hopefully, my existing portfolio, it won't impact that much because I'll probably exit it by then. Hopefully. But, as I'm investing now, My view has changed a little bit. Earlier it was more about, अच्छा HRIS में अच्छी SaaS नहीं बनी है India से, CRM में बन गई है Freshdesk. So maybe I should find an HRIS company that's going to build $1 billion company in the US and that caters to the global market. Today, the question is, who are the lateral thinkers who understand multiple disciplines and subjects, who can combine these in a way that they can solve large global problems, who are thinking about large global problems. So I think entrepreneurship itself will become deeper and will have larger surface area if you want to create real disproportionate value. And of course, then you'll have a long tail of businesses and brands and companies that are being built that will build value just like they always have. But the disproportionate value will get even more concentrated amongst the top few players in every industry, is what I think will happen with AI.
They say the Amara's law, right? That we overestimate the impact of technology in the short run,
Yeah.
but underestimate it in the long run.